Another way to use post-processing is as a way to cover camera transitions. Now, typically in cinema, we can often fade to black and then fade up to create a crossfade. This is typically not that easy in Unity, but the post-processing stack makes it much easier. So here we have a scene with two cameras, and we're kind of telling the story of coming out of the water and going into the pool house. So if I scrub through this, you'll see that we have one camera that kind of comes into the pool house, and then we cut to a camera on the deck, and then we enter the building. Now, when you play this, this cut can seem maybe a little jarring. Sometimes these sorts of cuts work, sometimes they don't. But let's put a small crossfade over the cut to give it a little bit more of a gentle transition. So we're going to add in a post-processing stack. So I'm going to create a post-processing profile. And I'm just going to call this one post-process black, because this is actually just going to be the scene turned down to black. And I'm going to go ahead and create an empty game object. And we'll call that post-process object. And then I want to make sure that everything's on the proper layers. So I'm going to go ahead and put this onto a layer that I created called post-processing layer. And we're going to add a component. And that's going to be a post-process volume. And that's going to connect to that profile, post-process black. And we want to make sure we check on is global. Now, one thing I didn't do was I didn't add in any effects to this post-processing profile. So I'm going to go ahead and add in color grading. And when I do, now I have stuff to work with. So when I go to this post-process object, color grading shows up. And then all I need to do now is attach my main camera. So I'm going to go ahead and add component, post-process layer. And so this layer is going to be the post-processing layer. And I'm going to do the same up here. Now I am adding this to the main camera. Now remember, with Cinemachine, all of the virtual cameras still feed into the main camera. I could add the effect onto each of the Cinemachine cameras, but then I would have to add in multiple effects per camera. By keeping it on the main camera, I can just have one master fader. So it makes it a little bit easier. So let's go over to our post-processing object here and see what we have. So if I'm going to have color grading, I'm going to go ahead and turn them all on. And the one that we want to work with is post-process exposure. So all I want to do is just turn that down to black. And a good number for this is, say, -10. That will go ahead and make it just about as dark as it can get. And that will go ahead and fade to black. Now we can control this with the weight. So when I animate the weight to 0, I have my scene. And when I animate it to 1, I've faded to black. Now you can use this as a crossfade like we're going to do, or you can just use it to fade to black at the end of a scene. And remember, you can have multiple post-processing profiles attached, so you can just have one here that just fades everything to black. So let's go into our timeline. We're going to create an animation track. And onto that track, we're going to drop that post-processing object. Create an animator if you need to. And then let's go ahead and record. Now I'm going to select that post-processing object. We're going to scroll right until the point where it cuts, which is right here at around frame 179, 180. So I'm going to back up to say, let's go ahead and make this a longer cut, a longer transition here. I'm going to back up to say 170. And then let's go ahead and just dial that weight back down to 0 and set a key. Let's go to this cut right around here. I think it's around 181 or so. Dial it up to 1. Go another 10 frames to about 190 or so. And dial it back down. So now we have a very nice cut here. So I'll go ahead and drop that off. If I want to, I can select this and convert it to a clip track. And now I have this clip track that I can move wherever I want. I can copy it. And now I have a fader that I can place anywhere on the timeline. So again, as it comes in, it fades out and fades in. And so that makes the cut a little bit gentler and allows you to cut between things that are a little bit further apart. So as you can see, the post-processing effects can be used to create things such as transitions, crossfades, and fades to black.